Hello, it's Bonnie Southgate from Pilates Therapy here. We are going to have a look today at some of the ligaments and soft tissues of the foot, we're definitely not looking at all of them because there's too many of them to even go through, but there are key ligaments that help to stabilize the ankle joint, particularly when people have sprains, which I thought would be useful to know, because then if someone does come in with a sprain, then you can have an idea of what they maybe have damaged and how best to deal with that person. And then we're also looking at something called the plantar fascia and the syndesmosis, which again are a little bit different, but we'll go through them. So I've got them written down here, and we'll have those for you, people who are learners from reading. But I'm going to sit down here and we're going to have a closer look. I have put some tape and I have labeled these ligaments. So if you look at the foot here, on the lateral portion of the foot, we have three main ligaments we're going to talk about today. And those are really commonly injured when people have what we call an inversion sprain. So they've rolled out on their ankle. So commonly done. And depending on the angle of the incident, it will affect all or some of these ligaments. So we're going to start with the one in the front, and that little ligament attaches your fibula to your talus. So your talus being that bone just underneath the fibula there, and it's referred to as the ATFL, the anterior talofibular ligament. So if I was in plantar flexion and inversion and I went over on my ankle, then I would be possibly damaging that ligament in that kind of sprain. Then we're going to come to the side here, and we have CFL, which is the next ligament, and that is your calcaneus attaching to your fibula again. So that's your calcaneofibular ligament. And again, so not necessarily in plantar flexion, but if you were standing up and you rolled just sideways, you can see how much that ligament is in stretch there. So that might be something that you would think would need rehabbing that side of the ankle. And then we look at the back, and we have PTFL, and that is attaching again your fibula to your talus. So that's your posterior talofibular ligament. And you might find that again the angle, so if I take that over and I'm in a slightly different angle, so I might be hitting the ground with my heel before I go over, and then I might be subjecting that to a bit of trauma or a sprain. So that's the lateral side, and that's probably the more common way that people injure their ankle, so it's quite useful to know those points. And now we're going to look at the medial portion of the foot, and you can see it almost looks like a big mass sort of meshed together. So as a whole group, this is referred to as the deltoid ligament, and it's actually broken down into 4 ligaments. And it's really uncommon for people to sprain their ankle in that direction. It's much harder because you've got if you look at the fibula, it comes down there. And if I was going to sprain my ankle there, I probably would break this bone in doing it. So if somebody says they've had an ankle sprain, they come in and they've gone into pronation in their sprain, you would probably almost always want them to be looked at by the doctor, or send them to A&E. They would need to have an x-ray because the bone gets in the way, really. So we're going to have a look at these ligaments, and again the names of the ligaments really go with the bones that they attach to. So at the very front here we've got the anterior tibiotalus ligament, or tibiotalar ligament, and that's attaching your talus to your tibia bone. And then we come over here, and then we are going to have your tibionavicular ligament. So it is your tibia attaching, a ligament attaching to your navicular bone, which sits just forward of your talus. And then we come to the side here, and then we've got your tibiocalcaneal ligament, and that is your tibia to your calcaneus. So we've got ligaments going to all the different bones here. We've got one attaching, the tibia attaching to the calcaneus, to the navicular, to the talus, and then back here We've got the posterior tibial talar joint. So we've got with the talus a ligament both in the front and the back. And that I said earlier in one of the videos, if you look at the our palpation of the bones, that talus joint doesn't have any muscle attachments. So it's reliant on these ligamentous attachments to try and keep it in place. And so it kind of floats around underneath there. So if you have somebody with excessive pronation, these ligaments would be put under stress as that foot is held in pronation. They would be continually under pull and under stress. So not a great place to be. And if someone did have the unfortunate event to sprain it that way, I have had one girl who is hypermobile and she has done, and actually didn't have an x-ray but figured she probably did break it because she had pain for about 9 months after in walking. So those are the main ligaments we were going to look at today. Now we're going to look at the plantar fascia, which is a fascial attachment. Now I haven't put tape here, and it runs from the underneath of your phalanges or your toes, and it runs underneath, almost like 5 little strips running underneath, and then it comes together and attaches onto the calcaneus or your heel bones. And that is a fascial attachment from underneath, really connecting the whole of the underneath foot, and then it will blend into the attachments into the calcaneus. So the plantar fascia helps to support the underneath of your foot and your instep. Then we've got something called syndesmosis, and the reason I brought up syndesmosis is, again, when people maybe have sprains or injuries, it's really overlooked, and it can be a point of real problem or pain with people who've had sprains. So again, if you have an inversion sprain, so if I was to sprain my ankle that way, you can see my talus there and how it butts up into my fibula. And in an inversion sprain, what it might do is push the fibula laterally. So it's shown here in this little thing here. You've got a little connection between your tibia and your fibula, and that would be your syndesmosis. So we will show on our courses a screen to look for an injury to the syndesmosis, because if it's pulled apart, obviously that's going to be a bit of a problem. And if people don't realize that that's happened, they don't give it the correct rehabilitation. So that is your syndesmosis in between your tibia and your fibula. So that's all we're going to talk about today, but those will give you a good idea of some of the ligaments and the fascial connections that we will talk about on our foot day. We've got a knee and a foot weekend that we teach. So if you found that interesting and you want to know more about the foot, then you can join us on our foot day, and you can find out when it is and where it is on www.pilatestherapy.co.uk.